Okay, so let's get right into it. When you're sitting at the gate waiting to board a flight, you just assume everything's been checked, right? But what you probably don't think about are the thousands of, well, invisible rules that make flying so safe. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a brand new one, FAA Directive 2025 17 16. And it's a really critical one for an aircraft you've almost certainly flown on. To really get what this new rule is all about, we have to talk about the very scary thing it's designed to stop. So, what exactly is an uncontained engine failure? I mean, the name alone sounds pretty bad, right? But trust me, the reality is a whole lot worse. And that risk right there is exactly why the FAA just dropped this new rule, Airworthiness Directive 2025 17 16. It's a targeted preventative strike, really. It's designed to stop this exact kind of catastrophic failure long before it ever has a chance to happen. All right, so let's break down this new safety mandate. We're going to look at what caused it, what exactly it fixes, and what it really means for the planes we fly on every single day. First things first, to really appreciate why this rule is so important, we kind of have to get into the nuts and bolts of the problem itself. It all comes down to the incredible physics of what can go wrong inside a jet engine while it's spinning at full tilt, miles up in the air. So let's answer that question. An uncontained engine failure is one of the most serious things that can happen in aviation. Think about the absolutely insane forces inside a jet engine. Now imagine a critical part just snaps. Instead of being caught by the engine's protective metal armor, it blasts right through it like shrapnel. We're talking high-velocity debris that can tear through a wing, hit a fuel tank, or even pierce the main cabin. And listen, this isn't just some theoretical what-if scenario. The FAA was pushed to act because of a specific, real-world incident. They did an analysis of a high-pressure turbine hub failure on a particular engine, a V2533-A5, and what they discovered was the catalyst for this entire directive. The way it fails is a simple but incredibly violent chain reaction. First, a part deep inside, in this case the turbine hub, cracks under all that stress. Second, that engine is spinning thousands of times a minute, so that broken piece gets flung outwards with incredible force. And third, it's moving so fast it just punches right through the very casing that's designed to hold it in. That's the moment it goes from a contained problem to an uncontained disaster. So why does this matter so much? Because these specific engines, the IAE V2500 series, are absolute workhorses of the aviation world. You find them most often on the Airbus A320 family of jets, one of the most popular planes on the planet for short and medium haul flights. This isn't some rare engine. It powers planes that many of us have flown on, probably multiple times. Okay, so that's the problem. It's serious, it's real. Now, what's the solution? Let's dive into the FAA's required fix. What are airlines and their maintenance crews actually being ordered to do? The directive is incredibly precise. It's not a blanket rule. Nope. It targets 10 very specific models within that IAE V2500 engine family. This is all about applying the fix exactly where the risk has been identified, covering different versions of the engine used on planes like the A320. The really big change here is how these engines get inspected. Before, it was more of a general checkup, but this new mandate, it's surgical. It demands specific, super detailed inspections of the high-pressure turbine's first stage and second stage hubs, the exact components that were identified as the potential point of failure. So how does an airline actually put this into practice? Well, it all starts with what seems like a simple paperwork change, but one with massive real-world consequences. They have to update something called the Airworthiness Limitations Section, or ALS, of their maintenance manuals. Just think of the ALS as the legally binding safety Bible for an aircraft. Once this change is in there, these new inspections are no longer optional. They are a mandatory, required part of keeping that engine flying. Now, a directive this big doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It creates waves. So let's talk about the ripple effects, the industry-wide impact on safety, on airline operations, and of course, on the bottom line. When you boil it down, the impact is really a balancing act. The number one goal, obviously, is a huge step up in safety. But to get that safety boost, it forces major operational changes for the airlines, and it brings in some pretty significant new costs that ripple across the business. And let's zoom in on those costs for a second. We're not just talking about buying a new part here. It's a whole cascade of expenses. First, you've got labor costs for engineers to update all the programs. Then you have the labor for mechanics to actually do the inspections. But the biggest hit, it's aircraft downtime. Every hour an airplane is sitting in a hangar for these extra checks, it isn't in the air making money.
And the impact goes even further than that. Think about all the aircraft that are leased. The terms of those leases are often tied directly to the engine's maintenance status. Well, this new directive changes those requirements, which means a whole bunch of lease agreements might need to be renegotiated. It forces airlines to basically rethink their long-term plans for their entire A320 fleet.
Finally, let's talk about the timeline. The FAA isn't suggesting these changes, they're mandating them. And let me tell you, the clock is ticking. This is the countdown to compliance. And this timeline is aggressive. The directive was issued on September 5th, 2025. It becomes legally binding just over a month later on October 10th. That gives airlines a very, very narrow window to get their maintenance programs updated and compliant across every single affected plane they operate. And a consequence for not getting it done in time? It's absolute. After that effective date, no airline is allowed to operate any aircraft with these engines unless the new maintenance program is in place. There are no extensions. There are no exceptions. It's simple. Comply or your planes don't fly. Which kind of brings us full circle. This one directive is a fascinating peek into the complex, proactive web of rules that keeps air travel as safe as it is. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other invisible rules, just like this one, are working in the background, keeping us safe every single time we fly?